Hello children, welcome to the class of biology. Today we are going to start the new chapter in biology, and that's life processes. And let's see what is the meaning of life process. The various functions or the life activities which are carried by the living organism, and that's required for the maintenance and continuation of the life, which is called as life processes. And you know that, and every living organism has different life activities, and that's required for the well-being of the organisms. And they includes nutrition, respiration, transportation, excretion, movement, reproduction, etc. So you should know that life processes are the functions or the activities carried out by the living organisms for its maintenance and continuation of the life. Okay, let's start with the first life process, and that's nutrition. And nutrition is a biochemical and physiological process by which the organism uses a food and which is required for the existence of life. And it includes ingestion, absorption, assimilation, biosynthesis, catabolism, and excretion. So the intake of food and its utilization, it comes under the term nutrition. The various chemical compounds of the food, we call it as nutrients. So the nutrients are being extracted from the food and which is required for the proper functioning and the maintenance of the health. And the nutrients can be classified into two main categories, and which is based on the amount by which it is being utilized by our body. So they are macronutrients and micronutrients. Micronutrients are the nutrients which are required in very small amounts by the body. Examples: vitamins, iron, copper, zinc, iodine, cobalt, etc. And these are required in very small amounts by our body for its, the life activities. And those are called as micronutrients. There are some nutrients like, proteins, carbohydrates, fats, and even, sodium, magnesium, potassium, calcium, etc., which are required in larger amounts. And we call them as macronutrients. So you should know that nutrients are the chemical compounds which are present in the food. And based on how much it is required by the body, we can classify that into two main types. And if it is required in small quantities, we call it as micronutrients. And if it's required in, relatively larger quantity, we call it as, macronutrients. Is it clear? Let's see the types of nutrition. There are two main types of nutrition, and we call them as, autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. The organism which does the process of autotrophic nutrition, we call them as autotrophs. Whereas the organism which does the process of heterotrophic nutrition, and they are called as, heterotrophs. In case of autotrophs, they prepare food by themselves by using simple inorganic materials. And that is why we call them as autotrophs. Auto means self, trophs means feed. And they prepare food by themselves from simple inorganic substances. And for that process, they use either light energy or the chemical energy. If they use light energy, and we call that process as photosynthesis, and there are organisms, they use chemical energy, and in those cases, they do the process of chemosynthesis for the preparation of food. Anyway, you should know that autotrophic nutrition is a process in which autotrophs prepare food by themselves from simple inorganic substances, either by using light energy as in the case of photosynthesis or by using chemical energy as in the case of chemosynthesis. Okay? And whereas in case of heterotrophs, they could not prepare food by themselves, so they depend on autotrophs ultimately. And they take the food, and the food will get digested. From that the energy will be produced. So they are either directly or indirectly depending on autotrophs for their food. So organisms which cannot prepare food by themselves but depend on autotrophs for their food, we call them as heterotrophs. This you will be studying in detail later. Okay. Now let's see, what are the two main types of autotrophs. I told you, autotrophs can prepare food by themselves, but the source of energy, it varies. In case of photoautotrophs, they prepare food by, themselves from simple inorganic molecules, but for that process, they use sunlight as a source of energy. All green plants and some blue green algae also, that comes under prokaryotes, and they use sunlight for the process of photosynthesis, and by that they convert simple inorganic materials to food. So the process by which autotrophs, if it depends on light as a source of energy, we call that process as autotrophic nutrition, and those organisms are called photoautotrophs. Whereas, as I told you earlier, chemoautotrophs, and they derive energy for the synthesis of food. They get the energy from some chemicals like sulfur, ammonia, etc. They use those materials as a source of energy to synthesize the food. And there are bacteria, nitrogen fixing bacteria and all examples for that. So autotrophs are of two main types, and that's based on which is a source of energy. If light is a source of energy for the process, we call them as photoautotrophs. And if the energy is being derived from chemicals, we call them as chemoautotrophs. Is it clear?